governance is about sharing power between state and non-state actors, right? Since it is a 10-mark question, you have the, let's say, option to, let's introduce with any, let's say, governance definition you can do, or you can start with context. Either way you can start. If you know a good definition of governance, that can also be basis to introduce, or the context of governance can also be basis to introduction. Right. Largely we go by, let's say that context. We will go by context rather than writing a definition, because definition can be written as the second aspect, next stage. This. So simply it can be written that governance has recently means governance has become a contemporary development which has forced governments to share their powers, right, with non-state actors. Our governance is a concept which gives emphasis on sharing powers with non-state actors, right. So that way it means a short introduction can be there. Let's say you can have a short introduction. This is how the state and non-state actors. So that way we can say the governance is a process, right. Our governance as a concept has emerged in contemporary times, which is nothing but about sharing powers with state and non-state actors. That can be the context. Let's say by context we can start. After this context we can go by this. Generally we say that the basic. Then you can write about governance. You can define about governance. The right definition about governance. This. Now, do we know a standardized definition, or just we write casual definition? That is how again difference between better preparation and generic preparation. So, and since it will come again and again, not only today, henceforth unless you qualify you have to write so many times. So at least we should have knowledge about one standardized definition of governance. This. Whatever the definition you write, although there are, let's say, multiple definitions of governance. But first time governance was defined by World Bank, right, in 1992. So governance is a way of, governance indicates in the manner authorities exercise, right, authorities exercise in the management of social and economic resources for development. This is the definition by World Bank. So simply we can refer that the World Bank defines governance as in the manner authorities exercise in management of social and economic resources for development. So when you refer to World Bank and define it, it gives a weight in your content. It gives, let's say that, legitimacy to your content. Even if suppose you do not know this definition, still at least your definition should be appropriate to governance. Right. So governance is a collective way of solving the problems of society. That was given by Osborne and Gabler. So that can be also a definition. This. Or a general definition can be governance, right, is a process in which all the three stakeholders participate for solving the problems of society. This. So just we write one definition, this we can consider. Then we come on, let's say, relating it when we talk. So then governance. So then you have to relate that why we started talking governance. Why we started talking governance, right? From, let's say, government. In past, there used to be, let's say that, government, the focus was government. The government focus used to be 1990s. Right. Till 1990s, the focus remained more on government. But thereafter, the focus has shifted towards governance. Right. In fact, this governance has been replacing the term government. Right. In the process of delivery of goods and services or solving the problems. So you have to write a bit of context here. You have to write a bit of context. This, and that context will be that during 1990s till 1990s, since state remained dominant force, dominant institution, so that state was, let's say, considered inefficient, or since state was a dominant force, it became inefficient, it remained inefficient, or there was a top-down approach, or let's say you can use public administration terminologies. The state before governance was conceptualized was considered administrative state. Right. So state was characterized as administrative state, from cradle to grave, from womb to tomb. So state performed everything, and hence it became too, let's say that, big to be efficient. It was in this context that governance was conceptualized to make state more efficient. And that was first by a World Bank report in 1989. Right, from crisis to development in the context of sub-Saharan countries, in which the World Bank gave the 4 components of governance. This. Hence, the idea of governance was brought during 90s, so that the power is shared, because when power remains concentrated, then that results into less efficiency, less ability to solve the problems of society. But when power is shared, then it enhances the state's ability to solve the problems more effectively. Yes. And it was this rationale that when power is shared, then the state ability is enhanced. That became basis, and that resulted into, let's say, 90s onwards, emphasis on sharing powers with state and non-state actors. That is how paradigm 6 was characterized by governance paradigm. And that governance paradigm, there is another question. That governance paradigm has globalization, devolution and delegation. So devolution and delegation are nothing but sharing powers. Right. And then you can give some examples how powers are shared. So there used to be, let's say that this kind of concept. It is a state, this is market, and this is civil society. Before 1990s, but after 1990s, this. So sharing. Now you can give any example where power is being shared. Any 1, 2, whatever the example you can give. Now this answer depends, the quality of answer depends on whether you are relating to this context. Why of the sharing of power? Why we need to share power? This is with state and non-state actors. So the context has the specific aspect to tell, like linking to the World Bank when it was conceptualized. Then you try to relate. Then second important aspect is your example. The example that you give this, or let's say that you can give example of anywhere there is sharing of power. So let's say even power sector or telecom sector. So we say that now it is divided into generation, transmission, distribution. How, let's say, at distribution level, how at, let's say that generation level, we have public-private partnership. This power has been shared. This we can give any other example or any, let's say, example where we can bring civil society also, or we can bring, let's say that other stakeholders also. So we can have, let's say that example of aspirational district initiative. Aspirational district initiative. The aspirational district initiative has participation of Niti Aayog. This plus, let's say that we have Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, plus we have TIS, plus we have, let's say, state governments. This. So it is an example where you are sharing power with civil society organizations. This. So that way it can be considered. So today we have, so this is what power is getting shared. So when power is shared, so what is happening? There is increase in efficiency, or there is an increase in, let's say, efficiency, ability to solve the problems. This. So that is how we can consider it. That is what we can say that. But let's say thereafter you have to write this basic body part, let's say we generally say that. I mean to say, then this is basic that you have told, then further elaboration. Then when we go by, let's say, conclusion. Conclusion part. So you can say that governance is not only about sharing powers. Governance is also a concept which has influenced the field of public administration, and it has even also given rise to network governance, or an emerging paradigm known as network governance. This. So that way you can conclude, or if you do not want to conclude that way, simply you can say governance has become a contemporary development, or governance has become basis for solving problems in any area today. That any field is getting characterized by governance. It can be financial governance, it can be corporate governance, it can be network governance. Something that way we can conclude. This can be also, let's way to conclude, and that is how it should have been written. Since question is talking negative etc., we don't have to talk negative much on this. Criticism etc., not needed. Just to explain the conceptual aspect.